Welcome back again to episode 12. Today, I wanted to talk about how organizations can start to think about being ready for implementing AI and talk about some of the challenges that AI poses and how companies should be thinking about this. So, first of all, I think if you're implementing any AI-based solutions, what are you doing it for? Is this for process automation? Are you trying to automate some processes that are kind of manually executed today? Is it simply replacing another technology with an AI-based technology? Are you replacing some manual tasks that are beyond human ability? If you've listened to other podcasts, you know that some of the things that Daisy's AI does is makes decisions that are beyond human ability. So if you're replacing some manual decision-making capability with people, you need to think of what's the objective. What am I applying AI for? Is it replacing technology or augmenting what people do today? So that's the first and foremost thing, is decide what is the purpose of AI. Is it decision support, or is it with people or without people? And so if we're going to get into decision support replacing an existing technology, then I think that's an easier path. If you have an automated technology today, you just want to improve that by using AI technology, then that's simpler because you're not impacting people's jobs, you're not impacting job roles, you're not impacting HR, typically compensation. It's just a technology play and you're improving capability. So I think key things in that scenario to have in place are business objectives and metrics. How are you going to measure the impact? Are you doing parallel testing? Do you have control cells so you can see what's the current process? How well does that work? How does a new process work? Do you have enough metrics about AI? I think that one of the slams against AI is that it's a black box. Do you have some metrics to predict the performance of AI? So especially, let's say you're doing claims automation and you see certain payments, certain claims coming in and you're automating payments. There's a certain types of products. You have a dozen different products. Each product has a different auto pay rate depending on the nature of the product. And so you should be able to predict how well your AI does against each of the dozen different products. And we can predict as the data is coming in, I can predict the blended accuracy rate. If I get 100 of product A, 200 of product B, 57 of product C, et cetera, I know my accuracy or my straight through processing rate against each of those from the AI, and I should be able to predict how will my system perform. And then when you measure how it's actually performing versus what you think it should perform, having some control metrics to track its performance and then compare it to how you used to do in the past. So having some ongoing metrics to make sure the system is performing as you expect, and having those control cell metrics to make sure it's doing better than before. So having a clearly defined set of metrics around your business process, being able to have a dashboard to monitor its performance, as I've talked about before, statistical process control, you're monitoring its recommendations and making sure the system is behaving normally and as you expect it. As soon as the system starts to deviate from as you expect it, then you may need to retune your analytical models that you may have built if it's been predictive supervised learning models, or you need to retune some of the parameters in your system. So it's super important to monitor. So I'd say AI readiness is about, do you have all the monitoring capabilities to make sure the system is behaving as expected and generating the financial returns? Do you have a financial business case that you're measuring, that you can measure the value created on a regular basis? I know from our clients, we hear constantly that they want to know the value created on a regular basis, like literally weekly. If you're making decisions weekly, then you need to see the value the following week. Or if it's daily, you need to see the value created the following day. So having those dashboards to operationally monitor the value and operationally monitor performance. So that's step number one. I think whether you're doing replacing an existing technology or you're going to alter the way people do jobs, in both cases, you need to have these metrics to be able to track how the system works and when it's time to tune the math inside the system. Now, if you're going to start touching on augmenting people processes, so in retail, if you're doing merchandise planning, a lot of merchandise planning is executed by people today in retail, or in insurance, investigations and adjudication and underwriting. There's a large people component involved in that. Now, if you're going to start to use technology to help the people, again, it's defining what's that new process going to be. Do I have a statement? Is our goal to save labor? or is our goal to eliminate labor, right? Are we going to repurpose that labor? Like, so if we're able to automate, let's say 50% of a job, does that mean we're going to eliminate 50% of people, or are we going to redeploy them? I think that's one of the major fears, this change management communication. The C-suite needs to have a position on that. Like, what a great message to deliver to your employees if you're implementing AI and you're using it to automate or augment business processes that people do. The message is, we're implementing AI, but we will not replace any jobs. We are not eliminating jobs. We are going to change maybe the nature of your job, but we are going to give you new tasks to do. That's a great message, rather than having no message and leaving this fear, are we being automated, right? I think, and even if there was a message to replace jobs, then that needs to be handled appropriately as well. So appropriate communication, have a stance on, is our goal to minimize the number of staff, or is it to redeploy staff? And I've seen both sides of the spectrum with our clients. Some companies say they have too much labor and that's affecting their overall cost model and their ability to deliver to consumers. Other companies, smaller businesses, typically they're a major employer in the town they're in. They don't want to eliminate jobs. They take family-owned businesses. It's a point of pride to employ people, and so they're more likely to find things to do, because typically in smaller companies the people are more overworked and there's more things that people can do. So you see both, and I'm not saying that big companies are only looking to eliminate people. That's not true either. I think every company has a position. So I think taking a position on, if automation is part of the goal, what side of that decision do we lie on, rather than embarking on a pilot, leaving that question unaddressed. I think this is a question very early on that you need to address for yourself and communicate that appropriately throughout the organization. Those are two things for readiness. And then, am I ready to literally rewrite job roles? If you're now using technology to augment someone's job and taking some of that away, you need to rewrite the job role. Like, what's the new job description? Are you willing to do the HR work to say, a merchandise planner is going to be, today the job might say they on a weekly basis choose what items to promote, they help set the promotional prices. Now that job written would be, merchandise planners use technology to review recommendations from the technology about what items to promote, review prices from the technology to see what prices to charge for those promotional items, and are looking to maximize profitability and business objectives. So we can add that strategic element as the new job role. So be willing to write the job roles, re-engineer the process. Now that there's a new step in the process, it becomes a little more systematic, rather than there's a promotion 12 weeks from now and we start planning 12 weeks in advance, and somehow between now and 12 weeks from now it all comes together. I see a lot of companies, it's very, in retail, it's a little bit ad hoc in how that process comes together. There's certain touch points along the way. I think with technology it becomes a little more systematic, and there's a service level. Monday morning, the technology delivers recommendations. Wednesday, you need to finalize your recommendations. You can make edits all the way along. It gets locked in 5 weeks in advance. They're much more structured. So that's the process re-engineering part of it. I've redefined the process. I've redefined the job roles. And if you have metrics, what are your metrics? Typically in retail, it's been category management, where their goal is to grow their category. Well, if we're now growing total store, that may be an objective. We want to grow total store impact. And we know that if you sell more produce will drive sales in meat and center store, so that the category managers have an impact in the total store. So that might change the compensation model, that it might not only be in your category, it could be a blend of category and total store impact. So changing the metrics, the performance management metrics, and also changing the compensation. And there could be utilization, that you need to utilize the technology. As you need to be using a certain percentage of the AI recommendations. That's same as in insurance. If you're going to be using the AI system to recommend which cases to investigate or not, again, there needs to be a certain level of utilization, that the investigators are using a certain percentage of the recommendations. And if they're not, tracking why. being able to track the reason why, and that's part of the new job description. The planners, be they retail or insurance investigators, need to say, this is why I'm going against the AI. So we can see, is there a problem with the AI? Is the AI wasting our time because it's not doing the right thing? I think collecting that feedback. So having a feedback loop for people to feedback, that's part of the new process. So all of these things a company needs to think through and be really ready, because implementing AI is a big change. Again, I referred to the Hollywood strike that just kind of ended. One of the big topics was this generative AI, how if you're replacing writers by using their historical work to generate new text, how are you compensating those writers? We know there's many authors and writers who are now suing some of the Gen AI companies because they've been training on their scripts and their movies. And so this is the human backlash of AI, where this hasn't been considered. The industry did not consider some of these impacts. And I think similarly, if companies don't think of these considerations, then you'll have a big backlash from the people, or you'll get non-compliance. The people who do the job will not want to use the technology because they see the writing on the wall. They see these unaddressed issues. People are going to do what they're being compensated for. And if compensation and job roles don't include description of the technology, then that's not going to happen. So I think addressing these change challenges up front, having a plan, having a statement on what your goal is, whether it's automation or not automation, eliminate jobs or not eliminate jobs, and having all the right metrics and business objectives in place so you can measure impact and monitor performance on a daily, weekly basis. I think these are some of the key readiness things we have to have in place. And I think one final thing is, what is the value proposition for the people who use the technology? So this is a really tough one. What is the value proposition? Like, we have a value proposition for AI. It's financial. It might be automating part of the process, saving the cost of the process, improving the process, making more revenue. So there's a clear financial value proposition for the C-suite. But what's the value proposition for the merchandise planners? What's the value proposition for the investigators, adjusters, and underwriters and insurance? I think that's a key thing you need to think about. What is in it for them besides the compensation? It's like, is it that the job is easier? It's more fun. You get to use really cool technology. You're upskilling. You're becoming AI literate. We're retraining everyone. You become more marketable. All of these things need to be addressed. The key considerations in my mind: objectives, metrics, monitoring, being able to tune the system, understanding where you stand on eliminating jobs, not eliminating jobs, being ready to do the big transformation process, job role, compensation, and then having a non-financial value proposition to engage the people who will be interacting with the technology and building that human technology interface. So I think these are important considerations that all executives should consider before they embark on an AI journey. And if you're not ready to address those questions and you embark on a journey without addressing them, you'll create a lot of change management pain, and you will likely not have a realistic test. You may get false results because of lack of participation from the people or the lack of willingness to support the initiative. So that's it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Again, as always, feel free to send questions or subscribe on Spotify and YouTube and listen in. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.